Sometimes a game sticks with you, and that's really special. I play a lot of games, and because of this process of writing about them and consolidating my thoughts on them, I tend to remember most of them, let's say reasonably well. For most of them, however, what I broadly recall are things like events in-game, characters, style of play. For the really good ones, I might be able to remember specific moments or lines of dialogue. But it would be disingenuous of me to suggest that I intensely remember all or even most of them. The ones that really hang around in my head are usually the ones that evoke very specific feelings, games that provoke strong emotions and make me question my relationship with the world around me. Venba is one of those games. You're listening to the almighty Backlog. I'm Ellie, and today's review is on Venba, available for macOS, PC, PS5, Switch, Xbox One and Xbox Series XS. Originally released in July of 2023, developed and published by Visai Games. It's a cooking puzzle game, and How Long to Beat has an average playtime of about 2 hours. All games are art, but perhaps some games are more, artistic in their goals than others. Maybe that's not fair, or the right way to look at this art form. One should never seek to disparage a work on merely superiority grounds, after all. I might not love what I would think of as bland AAA shooters, but they still have something to say inherent to them, even if all it is an uncritical glorification and gamifying of military action. But I think it's fair to say that some games feel more deliberately artsy than others, and often these are the ones that either think they have something profound to say, but in reality are mere facades surrounding a vapid, thoughtless centre, or they actually do have something profound to say. Because I love narratives in video games, I really enjoy coming across games like the latter, ones that seek to challenge our perceptions of the world or that push powerful emotive buttons that other more mainstream media prefers not to engage with out of fear of being too narrow or not marketable enough. I think, then, I should begin this review by saying that playing Venba was a deeply moving experience, and one which I feel privileged to have had. On the surface, it's a cooking game, but to simply define it by a gameplay mechanic feels reductive. It doesn't really capture what the game is about: immigration, culture, the understanding of oneself, the loneliness of parenthood, nostalgia, family, belonging. The experiences dramatised in Venba are ones that I have never felt, and in all likelihood never will, and as such to play it was a window into a world I'd never been exposed to or asked to consider, couched as I am in a gentle privilege endemic to people who share my background. I should make it clear that what I'm not trying to do is twist the spotlight onto me, as if to say, oh, look at me, I've overcome the privilege of being a white working to middle class Brit living in Britain, as if by the act of playing one video game about a different culture I've made myself into some sort of virtuous symbol. If there's a reason I'm talking about myself here, it's because Venba prompted me to do a lot of self-reflection. It tells a story that was genuinely new to me, done in a way that I found intimately compelling and, as you can probably tell, has really stayed with me. It's one of the great joys of art, that you can be exposed to brand new perspectives, and the beauty of a video game is that the interactivity lets it reach its audience in a far more hands-on way, I think. So what is Venba? Or, to put it more accurately, who is Venba? She is our titular character, a young woman who, along with her husband, Pavlan, leaves her home in southern India and moves to Toronto to start a new life free from the pressures and judgment they faced in India. However, a new beginning proves harder than they'd like. Not only is there a language barrier to overcome, but the pair find themselves isolated in their new home and both struggle to get work. Soon it's revealed that Venba is pregnant, adding in the difficulties of raising a child to the pair's troubles. Trapped in her tiny apartment in an unfamiliar country, Venba turns to one of the last tangible links she has to her home: cooking. Among her possessions is her mother's cookbook, a worn and dog-eared volume. Each recipe is a direct line to Venba's memories as she recalls her mother cooking each meal for her, and in turn they form the focal point around which we see Venba express her love for her home as she tries to navigate the increasingly complicated relationship she has with her son, Kavan, as he grows up. For Venba, food is the primary language she can share with her family, and seeing how Kavan does or doesn't connect to it is, in a word, heartbreaking. The cooking sections of each chapter form the primary gameplay of Venba, sandwiched as they are in between visual novel-style dialogue. I am no expert in the niche world of cooking games, but I think I'd been expecting something vaguely similar to Cooking Mama, something maybe a bit mini-gamey. In reality, Venba uses more of a puzzle vibe for them. A key part of each is deciphering the increasingly frayed recipes noted down by Venba's mother in her book. Early ones have perhaps a missing ingredient or step to work out, but as the years go by, they get more worn away and therefore harder to work out. The culmination of this, and a favourite moment of mine, is when an older Cavan tries to make something from the book and realises his written Tamil is so rusty that the book is near impossible for him to read, and we have to piece it together from the half-remembered single words he can dredge up from his memory. It's a gentle game though, so you don't really have to solve them, things advance regardless, but you can always go back and replay chapters to get the correct order. The nostalgia in Venba's cooking is frankly tangible, and the efforts gone in order to make each scene feel stunningly authentic is nothing short of excellent. I adore the almost ritualistic nature of each cooking scene. Close-up shots of ingredients being assembled are accompanied by the clank of pans and the sizzle of a heating stove. The radio gets turned up and we're treated to an extensive and eclectic soundtrack inspired by Tamil film music, and as each step comes together we get peeks into Venba's thoughts and memories. If the intent of the game was simply to be a showcase of Tamil culture, then it would be a job very well done indeed. But that's not the only message the game has for its audience. It is, of course, also a story about immigration, of the way that Venba and Pavlan both struggle to settle in an ostensibly welcoming country, but also it works to showcase the gap that can grow between first and second generation immigrants, and that's where the game hits the hardest. Venba's relationship with her son, Cavan, is at the forefront of the majority of the game. Born in Toronto, Cavan exists in a liminal space. He feels the pressure from family and his mother especially to connect with his Tamil heritage, but growing up in Canada, he also feels the need to fit in. This manifests in increasingly notable ways. It begins with his preference for speaking English, even around his family, and asking for food like pizza rather than eating his mother's cooking, but it spirals and grows as he ages, driving a wedge between him and his family. While there are definitely plenty of works out there that explore this phenomenon from the perspective of the child, it's powerful to see one done through the parent's eyes. Venba puts pressure on her child to learn Tamil or to enjoy cooking with her, but it's because she sees in him a rejection of his heritage, and the little island of Tamil culture she'd hoped for ebbing away, leaving her lonelier than ever. It's an arresting, heart-rending relationship, and it's impossible not to feel deeply sorry for Venba as she grows older and the gap between her and her son grows ever wider. I think all parents share that worry about what or who their children are growing up to be, but in Venba that process is complicated by the tangible sense of loss of culture, and the way Cavan seems to oscillate between deliberate in his rejection of being Tamil and simply being unthinking in taking his mother for granted. It's poignant and difficult to watch. I think what's particularly interesting about Venba is what it might mean to different audiences. I assume there's an audience out there who could play this and find it deeply relatable, as it gives voice to an oft-maligned, oft-misunderstood, and constantly misrepresented group of people. Obviously, I can't in any way claim to speak for that viewpoint, so for me instead was a deeply evocative opportunity for self-reflection, both in terms of my own actions and those of the society I live in as a whole. I should hasten to clarify that when I say it offered me a chance to reflect, it's not that I think I'm especially racist, or at least I would hope I don't come across that way, but part of holding a progressive and inclusive worldview includes not being afraid of being asked those kinds of searching questions about oneself. There's a moment in the game where a character is in discussion around a depiction of Tamil culture in a Canadian TV show. The person they're talking to, presumably a higher-up or a manager at this TV network, is a white Canadian man, and there is a generally positive air around the chat. He wants to go to lengths to show the diversity in Canadian society, and is doing so by having a table of kids sit together in this show, each one eating a food representative of their heritage. However, things hit a snag when he suggests that the Tamil child is shown eating a vindaloo, and he reacts a bit poorly to the idea that he has just conflated all of Indian cuisine and culture together into one child. Though he's well-meaning in some sense, he commits an unthinking microaggression and doesn't allow much for the retort against it. So it goes, Venba seems to say. Despite being in a country that wants to pride itself on inclusivity, it's still prone to performative acceptance rather than really looking to understand. I think that kind of message is more important than ever to digest right now. As I write this, countries like the United States, Canada, the UK, and indeed much of continental Europe are all fighting what seems like a never-ending battle against a rising wave of fascism. A coordinated rush of racism is being stoked like never before in these places, with constant appeals to populism centred around highly charged, offensive rhetoric, and when challenged on it, it all gets couched in a cowardly, snivelling, and angry appeal to a bastardised sense of freedom of speech. Where once views like this would be fought, ridiculed, or met with unified condemnation, little by little our safeguards have been whittled away, and open racism has become more and more mainstream. It becomes more and more vital, then, to share art like Venba. It might feel like a small thing, but that reminder to engage in healthy self-reflection and to engage with vibrant, heartfelt and authentic depictions of cultures other than one's own are what give colour to the world and help to expand our own experiences and empathies. It is a tough story to digest at times, but that shouldn't be met by a hardened heart. Rather, enjoy the experience of being gently challenged and expanding your horizons, and go out into the world afterwards a more thoughtful person. That is, after all, why we engage with art. The final score is 6 out of 7, excellent. Games with a touch of brilliance. It might only just miss out on being an absolute favourite, but you should definitely play this. This has been Ellie on the Almighty Backlog. You can support this project by reading the review over on thealmightybacklog.wordpress.com, or by listening to the pod review hosted on RSS and YouTube. Please feel free to follow me over on Mastodon, Blue Sky and/or Backlogged by following the links on the blog. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can do so by donating via PayPal to thealmightybacklog@gmail.com or by hitting the donate button on the blog. Thank you for listening and have a lovely day.